Everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Jenna, and this is our daily show giving you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus insight into what it all means. And joining me as always is AMC Editor-in-Chief John Campea.
Greetings, salutations, everybody. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. And also joining us today is AMC Associate Editor Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
That was good. All right, let's get started. As you all know by now, John's #1 most anticipated film of 2013, Man of Steel, opens in AMC theaters everywhere on June 14th. Yesterday, yet another major film magazine highlighted their cover with Superman as Entertainment Weekly shows off their new April 19th edition. John, what do you think about the cover, and why should we be excited for Man of Steel?
The cover's awesome. I mean, it's got, Amy Rose and I were just talking about it, it's got, Cavill in that standard superhero pose, the one knee, the fist down. He looks awesome as Superman. I'm so thrilled. As to why we should be excited, why I had this film as my #1 most anticipated film of 2013. Look, I put together a little list for you. I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you should absolutely be really, really excited about Man of Steel. The #1 reason is Zack Snyder. I mean, Zack Snyder, he dropped the ball on Sucker Punch. There's no denying, you can't get around that. But what he did with 300, I mean, I watched that again last week.
It's good.
It's a damn good, fun, machismo kind of movie, which I'm really hoping he's going to bring a big dose of that to Superman. But you even look at that animated film. I can never remember the exact wording of it, but the Rise of the Guardians, the Legend
Ga'Hoole.
of the Owls of Ga'Hoole, whatever.
Ga'Hoole.
That movie is just so visually stunning and beautiful and everything. This guy is just really good. I think he's a really good fit for Superman. #2, Christopher Nolan. I mean, when you've got a guy like that, with all the rep he brings, not just from the Batman films, but when you're looking at films like Insomnia, which is my personal favorite film of his, or Inception, or The Prestige, and he brings that type of gravitas to it. You got to pay attention. #3 is David Goyer, the guy who wrote those Batman films with Christopher Nolan. And it's how it all came about. We told this story last week. David Goyer is working on The Dark Knight Rises with Christopher Nolan. And Christopher Nolan comes to him and says, hey, where are we in Dark Knight Rises? And he says, I don't know, man. I just had this idea for Superman. I started writing this idea. And him and Christopher Nolan looked at the idea that David Goyer wrote down and went, and Christopher Nolan said, this is so good, I have to stop what I'm doing on The Dark Knight Rises, call the head of Warner Brothers right now and say, we need to meet today because we have to make this movie. When you hear like that, Christopher Nolan getting freaked out and saying, I got to call the head of Warner Brothers right now and say, we got to make this movie, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It must be pretty damn good. #4 is Henry Cavill himself. I think this guy was really underappreciated on The Tudors, or The Tutors, or however you pronounce this stupid show's name. But in Love or Hate Immortals, because I'm lukewarm about Immortals, Henry Cavill was great in Immortals, and he showed that he can do these type of hero action-y roles. I really enjoyed him in that movie. And #5, it's Superman, stupid. This is what summer movie making is supposed to be about. It's Superman. So, yes, I love this cover. Yes, it's my #1 most anticipated film of the year. And there are 5 indisputable, irrefutable reasons why you should absolutely be excited for Superman in The Man of Steel. Amy Rose?
Well, we're both so excited for Man of Steel, and pardon my voice and parents' lovelies, I'm a little under the weather. But yeah, I love the list. Christopher Nolan is actually my #1 reason because I think he really just sets the stage. And I mean, as a writer myself, some of the best ideas really do come when you're working on other things.
Other things, yeah.
And it's a shame because it takes me out of what I'm working on, but Man of Steel is going to be really, really amazing. I love the magazine cover, and, I really do think it brings the really cool modernized Superman look to it. And we also found out that there's going to be no kryptonite in this film, which I thought was very, very interesting. Obviously, Superman will still have his hands full, General Zod. We have a lot going on, but I thought that was very interesting. And obviously, Lex Luthor and Kryptonite, maybe we'll see that coming down the line.
Down the road.
But yeah, I'm so excited about it. I think Henry Cavill is going to be great, and hopefully this is the Superman film we've been waiting for. I mean, all signs point to yes, so I'm really excited about it.
Okay, Fast and Furious 6 opens in AMC theaters everywhere on May 24th, and as we reported last week, it appears Part 7 could go into production as soon as this summer. However, director Justin Lin will not return for it. It is now being reported that Saw and Insidious director James Wan is in talks to take over the Fast and Furious franchise. Amy Rose, do you think Wan would be a good fit for Vin Diesel and company?
Sure, why not? You know, Fast and the Furious, it's not like a Nolan or a Refn film where the lens and everything's so calculated and beautiful. It's a fun time, you know? So I feel, and Insidious was great. I thought that was really creepy and a good film. And I liked Saw 1, maybe not Saw 72, but I liked the first one. And I think that, you know, he's an interesting filmmaker. And again, for a film like this, you don't need a crazy artistic eye. It's a fun time. Cars, action, cheesy one-liners, like, it's a good time. So why not?
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on this. I think to shoot action films well, and that the last two Fast and Furious films have been shot really, really well. There is a special skill from a director of photography point of view on shooting that type of action in such a way that it has audiences on the edge of their seat. I like James Wan as a director. I like you, I quite enjoyed the first Saw. I thought it was a very interesting. I even kind of liked the second one, but after that, just gave up on it. But I just don't know if I see his style as a fit for a Fast and the Furious kind of thing. I'm open to it. I think it's a very interesting name to bring to it. I'm not jumping up and down about it. I could see other people doing it, but yeah, overall, I'm not thrilled with the idea of Juan directing Fast and Furious 7. I think there's some other guys that might be much better because maybe they have a better suited style. But hey, I'm all about letting guys jump out of their comfort zones and do something that stretches them a little bit. So maybe this is a good opportunity for that.
And you brought up something about, an action film. Obviously, to really show good action and show the development of it and the explosions and everything, it does take a certain level of skill. But the same can be said with horror movies, to build that suspense and to really narrow in on the creepy factor, what's happening in the development of that. So I really could see that being a good fit.
Yeah, I just hope there's not a style conflict there.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we come to that part of the show for buy or sell. What's going to happen here is that Jenna's got a few other issues in the world of movie news. She's going to list them off, and Amy Rose and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Jenna, what do we got?
It's been talked about for almost 10 years, but it seems that a World of Warcraft movie is finally on its way. In a recent interview with our friends at Collider, Legendary Pictures CEO Thomas Tull talked about the development of the movie and had this to say: "We're huge believers in Duncan Jones, and I think what we're going to bring to screen and to bear with Duncan, he's going to break that mold because it's going to have the resources, the talent around it, and a field general in Duncan Jones. It's, again, the reason we took our time, made sure we had the right guy, the right person to make the movie, and then it will speak for itself when it comes out." John, buy or sell that we're actually going to get a World of Warcraft movie this time?
Super buy. Super buy. And, I was already really excited because of Duncan Jones. Look, a lot of film fans talk about films, say, we got to make sure you get the right guy when they're talking about the lead actor. Garbage. The right guy is getting the right director.
It's both.
It's important to get the right actor and everything, but I believe head and shoulders above everything else, it's that field general, the guy in the chair, that is the absolute most important thing. If you get that right, then everything else will have a much easier time of being right, including the important things of getting the right actors and everybody else involved. But what I love about this is really excites me about this statement. He says, we're going to put the resources behind it. Duncan Jones, who did films like Moon and that exploding train movie, which the name of it eludes me right now. He's great at developing story with very little. Give him a lot. I'm excited to see what he can do. So I'm very much a buy.
Yes, I'm buy. Beyond just the director factor, World of Warcraft is such a great game for a movie. I know that I'm the one that constantly supports narratives in games being good for film, opposed to John, who usually bashes them. But yep. I definitely think World of Warcraft is going to lend itself really, really well. It's such an interesting and elaborate game, and I loved Moon. Sam Rockwell is one of the most underrated, fantastic actors ever, and him and Duncan really made magic on that movie. So I'm really excited for this.
Harry Potter director David Yates has been working on a new version of Tarzan and recently cast True Blood star Alexander Skarsgård as his lead, and that they were close to signing Jessica Chastain as Jane. However, it appears the film has been shelved. According to reports, Warner Brothers has canceled plans to go into production on Tarzan this year and is shutting down the production office. Yates remains attached to direct, but apparently the film's budget couldn't be reduced down to the level that made the studio comfortable. John, buy or sell the apparent cancellation of Tarzan?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. It is tough when you hear these stories that happen about budgets starting to spiral out of control. Look, studios, they greenlight projects with a certain budget, and then sometimes what happens is that as the producers and the director really start to develop the project, they keep having to go back to the studio and say, well, we said 100 million, now it's 120. Now it's 150, now it's 180. So I can kind of buy the studio saying, whoa, let's put the brakes on this. Let's maybe revisit it again in 2014. It's an unfortunate thing, and I could see Alexander Skarsgård as a Tarzan, but I buy it. Yeah, I get where they're coming from.
I also buy, that it's being canceled, but I'm not pleased about it. I think Alexander Skarsgård is a really good actor, and I don't think he's been giving a chance to shine as much. I mean, he was just in this movie, Disconnect, which I won't talk about, but he's really doing his best to break away from that mold, Eric Northman, and just really show his chops and his range. And I think that Tarzan would have been a really different role for him. And Jessica Chastain, I mean, sign me up. I think she makes every project she's on better. She's such an amazing actress and a beautiful one at that. So I was really looking forward to this movie.
Invincible director Erickson Core has signed on to direct the remake of Point Break, the 1991 film that starred Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze about an FBI agent who goes undercover to infiltrate a criminal ring, set in the world of international extreme sports. Amy Rose, buy or sell a Point Break remake?
Sell. Do not touch that gold. Do not touch that gold. That is one of the best, worst movies ever, and I love Point Break. I mean, they just did the Point Break live, play of a couple months back, and it's just the best, worst movie ever. Do not remake that.
It is not one of the best, worst movies ever. It is one of the best movies
ever. It's one of the best, but it's so
I
cheesy,
love
and that's
Point
why
Break.
it's hilarious.
Patrick Swayze. You exude strength to avoid conflict.
Bodhisattva.
I mean, that movie's so good. Now, first of all, it should be mentioned they already did a Point Break remake, and it was called Fast and the Furious. But aside from that, I'm all buy. I am all buy this thing.
Well, you're Mr. Remake.
Because I think the story is so great, and the types of characters that are in there that you can work with, and it's 1991. It is over 20 years ago now. I think this is a good time to do it. Once again, it'll all depend on what direction they go with it, what tone. If they really want to go the way they did the original, I'm all for it. Patrick Swayze's number 2 best movie ever was Point Break.
Don't touch that movie.
Number 1, obviously his number 1 best movie ever is Roadhouse. I mean, obviously, that is the quintessential Patrick Swayze movie right there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So, yes.
All right, Mr. Remake. He wants everything remade.
Anyway,
shame.
It is now time for our mailbag. Listen, folks, if you've got a topic or question you would like us to address on air, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Just send in your questions. We pick out a few every day and address them on air, and you could have your question on air. Right now, Jenna's got a few picked out of the mailbag, so what do we got?
Douglas Futrell writes, hey guys, I think y'all are still doing a fantastic job with the show. My question to you, John, and co-host of the day, with Phase 2 already underway for Marvel and an Avengers 2 movie greenlit, I have a legit concern with Phase 3 and Avengers 3. With Avengers 3 and all the characters that will be introduced in Phase 3, do you think that this future movie could possibly be filled with too many superheroes? Don't get me wrong, I am a Marvel Universe geek, but I think Avengers 3 could bring in too many superheroes to share a 2.5-hour screen time.
I'm not worried about it at all, actually. Now, if you're talking about big major characters that all have to have big major roles, I think Joss Whedon pushed it to its limit with the amount of main characters you had, and they all got equal screen time. And you're right, you can't go beyond that number. However, if the X-Men films taught us anything, it's that, yeah, you can have a lot of characters in there that we recognize that don't necessarily have to have key roles or have 20 minutes of screen time or whatever. And I believe as we get it past Avengers 2 and into Avengers 3, I think you're going to see a lot of the characters take kind of back seats, maybe characters that have already been established, take kind of back seats to allow other characters to have, I mean, obviously, Captain America has to be a lead. Obviously, Thor has to be a lead. And all those types of things. But does Ant-Man have to have a major presence in Avengers 3? No, he can just kind of be there and be a background character, kind of like Colossus was in the X-Men films. So I'm not really worried about it. I think it'll work out just fine.
Co-host of the day here, checking in. I completely agree. I mean, Joss Whedon has proven that he is really masterful in giving the amount of screen time to the actors to not make it feel rushed, to make all their stories and narratives feel important. And I think that I'm not worried about it at all. I mean, look at X-Men First Class, the little scene that Hugh Jackman was in for Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
Just a little tip of the hat to fans, and that made us really happy. Something as simple as that, just a little nod to these characters, really still makes us really happy. So I don't really think they need to be woven in the series to the full extent, kind of like John is saying, just smaller narratives, but I'm not worried about it at all. I think Joss Whedon knows what he's doing.
Although I will say this, I absolutely guarantee, you write this down right now, I guarantee you, Joss Whedon will not be directing Avengers 3. I absolutely guarantee it.
I hope you're wrong.
I
really
do too. I hope I'm wrong too. I would celebrate being wrong about this.
Star Wars?
But you know me, I'm not wrong. So
of course not, right?
Never. Alec R. writes, "Hey guys, I have to say that your show is awesome. I tune in every day, and I bow to John Campea.
Wise man.
My question is about Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It is currently set for release on April 4th, 2014, but I just can't see Marvel releasing one of their big-budget superhero movies in April. I know that they do plan on releasing Thor 2 this November, but November has had blockbusters in the past like last year's Skyfall, but April is definitely not known for blockbuster superhero movies. So do you think Marvel will move Captain America 2 to a prime summer release date, or will they stick it out in April and try something new?"
First of all, Alec, rise. Secondly, I gotta admit, I thought the exact same thing that you did, actually. Well, the first time I heard that they were going for an April release date on it, I was like, well, that's a little outside of the norm for Marvel. But I gotta say, the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? I think this is a genius move. They can completely, let's face it, the Captain America, while I really love the first one, the Captain America movie franchise right now is not their most popular. Not that it's unpopular, it's just not their most popular. I think Captain America Winter Soldier could own that month. And not just the week it opens. I mean, I think films are going to be afraid to open before it, and I think films are going to be afraid to open after. I think you're talking about a film now that could probably own the box office for 2 or 3 weeks with that release date. I think it's really, hey, maybe it'll backfire. Maybe it will. But I love the roll of the dice. I love the risk, and I think it's going to pay off for them. Amy Rose, what do you think?
I think it's definitely same thought process. When I first saw that, I was like, oh, interesting. But I think there's so much heat and momentum around these superhero films, and obviously all the first renditions of them did really, really well. So I really don't think they need to put it in, the month where they typically release. And not to mention, April kind of kicks off the season. I mean, I'm going to Coachella this weekend, hey-o, and it kind of kicks off the beginning of the summer season. That's just kind of where it all starts moving really fast, and you start seeing the slates pick up and everything. So I don't think it will be in danger, and I don't think they'll move it because they do want to stagger them a few months in between to really just basically dominate the box office, and I don't think they're going to have a problem doing that.
Sean George writes, "With the ever-expanding cast of X-Men Days of Future Past, do you think we'll see it split into multiple movies? While 2 films would seem most likely, I could really see a trilogy working. Maybe if the first film focused on the current era X-Men, fending off Sentinels with a climatic ending showing Kitty Pryde being sent to the past to warn the X-Men. Then the second movie involves the first-class cast using that information to try to stop Trask. Finally, the third film shows both casts fighting as one to defeat the common enemy. What do you think? Am I getting carried away, or could this work?"
I think you're getting a little carried away, but actually only a little. I've actually thought for a while now that I believe they are going to announce at some point that Days of Future Past is going to be split into 2 films. However, I think that's a big risk because they don't know how the audience is going to react to it. And to commit to 3 films, I think is a really big gamble that I don't think they're going to be willing to do that. Like, it's one thing when Peter Jackson comes to you, having come off one of the greatest cinematic triumphs of all time in the Lord of the Rings films, and say, hey, let's take the Hobbit and split into 3, going, okay, yeah, we can probably feel safe with this bet. It's another thing for an X-Men title right now to say, let's split this into 3. I don't think they have plans to do it in 3. I don't think they will do it in 3. But I do believe you're right about them splitting into 2. I got nothing to back that up with. I'm just, that's my guess, that they're going to split into 2. Amy Rose?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, while I think it would be very interesting, I mean, all of these, there are a lot of cast updates and everything, but the fact that Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, we already do have the future and the past, Xavier and Magneto, kind of makes me think that we're really going to see the whole past and present and everything going on with Kitty Pryde obviously igniting it. So I don't think that will happen. I do think with these kind of, comic book films, while X-Men First Class was a really big hit for Fox, and hopefully they're going to do a great job with this. Bryan Singer, kind of what you touched on, doesn't hold as much power as the Peter Jacksons of the world, as the Christopher Nolans of the world. Sure, I think he's a good director, but, I think that if they really hit this out of the park, of course they're going to keep making these and making money. And hopefully this is such an interesting plot. I really, really loved this comic, so hopefully it's going to be awesome.
Okay, Henry writes, "Hey guys, I just started watching and I love your show. I couldn't disagree more about Dragon Ball Z not being worth the investment, which leads me to ask, do you think Paramount and Nickelodeon should invest in making the last 2 books of The Last Airbender? I think fans would agree that the first movie did okay with introducing the characters to a new audience."
Let's start with the Dragon Ball Z thing. Look, no, nobody would go see it. Nobody would go see it. They already did a Dragon Ball Z movie, and nobody went to see it. Now, I got a lot of excuses from people saying, "Oh, well, no one would see it because of this, and because of this, and because of this." That might explain why it made like 10 million less. Nobody went to go see it. Nobody did. And the whole argument was, well, they didn't go see it because it was a terrible movie. Yeah, but audiences don't know it's a terrible movie until they go see it. And nobody was even willing to take a chance on it and go see it. It won't happen. It will not work. It's a terrible investment. That's not to say that the Dragon Ball Z source material isn't awesome. And that's not to say that a movie couldn't be awesome. I'm simply telling you, the fact is, there's not an audience for it. There's just not. With regards to The Last Airbender, I was one of these naive idiots who was really excited for that movie. I actually thought, despite Shamhammer's track record leading up to it being so bad, and all that kind of stuff, to me, the source material of Last Airbender was rich. The trailers for The Last Airbender looked awesome. And I was like, preaching from the mountaintop, this movie is going to be M. Night Shyamalan's return to form. You watch, this movie's going to be great. I'm so excited, and he made a fool out of me because that movie was one of the worst films of not the year, of the decade, maybe of the century. That movie was so disgustingly awful. It has one of the lowest critic ratings for a major wide release film over $100 million budget in history, with only a 6% rating. 6%. So Henry, dude, I'm super happy that you enjoyed the film. That's what movies are all about. It's all subjective. You might enjoy something that I might not, and vice versa, and that's the greatest thing about movies. However, to say that you think fans will agree that it did a good job, I have to respectfully disagree with you. I don't think anybody thought they did a very good job on that film. Like I said, I'm glad you enjoyed it and that you can continue to enjoy it on Blu-ray and whatnot, but I thought it was a train wreck, a legendarily awful film, one of the worst films in history. But at least major release films. That's just my thought. Amy Rose?
With Dragon Ball Z, if they got the right director, the right actors, that it could be a hit. I mean, it could. I think that any source material with interest and the right players behind it and the right marketing campaign, we saw that with John Carter, marketing gone wrong. It can really work in both ways. That it can be a hit. And, I did not read The Last Airbender book, so I don't really have anything to base it off. I agree, I really did not like the film. But, I'm not a fan, so I'm not going to pretend to say that it held up to this or not. But I think that, with the right pieces in place, especially the director, that, sure, they could do a good job with it, but I don't think it needs to happen because that was such a colossal, failure. And I think it would be really hard for a studio to want to invest in that after seeing what Shamhammer, I love that nickname, by the way, Shamhammer, what Shamhammer did. So he's got a lot riding on his new Will Smith picture.
I think you're misunderstanding when I say, look, just because nobody was interested in Dragon Ball Z doesn't mean they can't make a great movie.
Of course.
You could make a great movie.
Yes.
But I think they already proved, look, the existing audience for it is extremely finite. And they did put out a Dragon Ball Z movie, which was awful. But even if it's awful, if there is a fan base for it, if there is an existing fan base large enough to want to see that movie, even if they don't think it looks very good, they're going to go. And nobody went to go see it. Like it made, oh God, I remember I looked up the number last week when this topic first came up, and it was so infinitesimally small that I was like, you can't say, look, you might be able to make a great movie, but still no one's going to go see it. Listen, folks, we have run our course today. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, stop what you're doing. Take a second. Click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And once again, don't forget, click that subscribe button. Listen, go on out and see a movie tonight. Head on over to www.AMC Theaters for all your theater and showtime and movie ticket information. And listen, if you want to listen to us on your commute to work, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and our Stitcher Radio for an audio-only version of this show. And again, third time, click that subscribe button. And remember, one more time, what we have to say is really not important in this show. The really important thing is what you have to say. Make sure you jump down to the comments section and leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we've covered here today. I want to thank, as always, our lovely host, Ms. Jenna Phillips.
Thanks for having me.
AMC Movie News Associate Editor, Ms. Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hi, guys.
And thank you again to you guys. My name's John Campia for AMC Movie News. Until next time, bye-bye.